Alrighty, out here with the new GP100 with the 6-inch. I picked up a box of these Grizzly. Yeah, shit. There we go. Oh my. 357, 180 grain, gas checked, hard cast bear loads. 1,350 feet per second, 728 foot-pounds of energy. These are pretty hot for a 357. Just a real quick, try to be quick here. So real quick look at the bullet profile there. As you can tell, it's all hard cast. These are a little snappy, but nothing too bad. I have noticed they're a little smoky. But here, I'll go ahead and try some 100. Very nice. Seems to put it right on. So really enjoyable. I plan to use these for the deer season this year. So check them out. Let me know what you think.
Alrighty, welcome back. As you can see, I have a new revolver on the bench. Pretty evident this is a Ruger revolver for any revolver aficionados on here. But this is the GP100. This is a 6-inch variant, so you got the longest barrel you can get the GP100 in. And I used to have a GP100 that was in the 4-inch barrel. Pretty much essentially the same gun, except for it's now a longer barrel. Build quality and everything else is pretty much the same. That was a few years back. I ended up getting rid of that one to go a different route because I really wasn't shooting it too much. Just kind of how things go. So I ended up looking for a backup hunting revolver in 357, and that's kind of what led me down the hunt. And I ended up falling back on the GP100 because I was at least fairly familiar with it. Now, I'm going to go over just a couple of the quick specifications on it, just to kind of point out a few things. Overall length is 11.5 inches. Total weight is 45 ounces. So at least that's what they advertise. So a pretty stout revolver. Definitely soaks up some recoil. It has a 6-round capacity. As you can see, you can get the GP100 in a 7-shot capacity. But I mean, that's here nor there. I mean, it's just really all you get is an extra round, and you end up making these chambers a little thinner in some spots. So being that I'm going to put some hot loads through this, I figured I would prefer the 6-shot variety just so I had more chunky steel. As I said, it's a 6-inch barrel. It's an all stainless steel construction. So it's just basically you can see the brushing here. It's kind of a brushed stainless steel finish. Really pretty, fairly durable for the most part. Like, it'll hide some small scratches and stuff just because it'll be natural wear and tear. And it kind of has that already, for lack of a better term, scratched look. But if you get a deep gouge and stuff, you'll be able to definitely tell. But the good thing is you can buff them out on these if you're so inclined. But yeah, that's kind of the biggest things. Now I'll kind of go into just the general features of the GP100. You have a triple locking cylinder. So it locks up here at the back, locks up here, and it locks up here. And so this is powered by a little detent that pops up into, up here into the front. So you have this little guy here, spring loaded, and it will catch inside of that. So it's really got a good lockup system. You know, stout for lack of a better term. And I mean, these other ones are standard revolver locking mechanisms, but you know, they do add that extra in the front, which is nice. A lot of different manufacturers do some different things. That's just the way Ruger does it with the GP100. So you have a full underlug on the barrel as well, which I think is really beautifully done. It's cut out here for your ejection rod, and your star. You know, nice quality there, nice crisp cuts. The chambers all look good and even. And I mean, really, the overall construction is really good. I'll get into a few more points later on, but I'll keep going on these features. So you have a ramped front sight, which is an easy replace. I really like this on the GP100. You have a little detent in here that you can push in, and you can slide this guy out. So it's a lot easier than other systems where you have to like drill out, put the new sight in, get a new pin, stuff like that. The rear sight is a fully adjustable sight for windage and elevation. It kind of has a Glock goalpost per se sight picture there. But I mean, it's fine. It works really good. There's a couple different options you can get out there. I have had the Williams fire sights on the old GP100 that I had. May consider going back to that route, but we'll see. You do have a nice serrations here on the top of the barrel, which I think looks really nice, and it helps cut down on some of that glare. Going back here, you have a nice Hogue grip with some finger grooves that you can get into. Really helps you get a good grip onto the Revolver itself. Generally just comfy. There's a lot of options on the aftermarket for these. You can get wood grips. The GP100 is a Tang style, so you have just a piece of metal here that goes in, and the whole grip slides over it. So you don't have a back strap per se that pokes through the gun or anything like that. Carrying on. Now, one thing to note is a lot of people will give the GP100 and generally the Ruger revolvers some gripes because these are a cast frame. Now, depending on what school of thought that you want to go on, cast is usually not as strong. Now, that's being said, not all cast parts are created equal. Ruger owns their own investment casting facilities where they do all their own in-house casting. Now, these are some very substantial, very heavy-duty, high-quality casting. I have not ever really heard of any serious issues with the Ruger Revolver casting. So if anybody has, please comment below. I would like to hear about them, to be honest. But I mean, definitely, you know, this top strap here, that's really thick, substantially kind of blockier. And I don't know if that's part of, you know, just kind of over radius and everything, so that way, you know, compensate for being cast or not. But it definitely does lend itself to be pretty strong. Now, a lot of people call the GP100 a tank in terms of revolvers. Now, part of it is necessarily the, you know, heavy nature of it. They didn't remove a lot of material just to make it shapely. But I think one of the bigger parts here is that you do not have a side plate. So this whole grip pack down, or grip, Jesus Christ, trigger pack down here, this comes out and it has, you know, sub-assembly parts that run different parts of the revolver. So by not having a side plate back here, you can definitely get some potential extra strength. Now, not to say that Smith & Wessons are weaker, they're definitely strong, nice forged steel frames. But with this being a solid piece, I think that allows this casting to actually work. If you had this cast and you had all this machined out and had a side plate and you had thinner pieces in here, I'm not 100% sure that the cast would do what it needed to do. But like I said, that's a debate for another day. But being that this is all kind of a monoframe system, it definitely holds everything together well. And like I said, I have not heard or seen really any huge issues with these revolvers in terms of longevity. That being said, I have shot some some big boy 180 grain cast performance grizzly rounds here. This is advertising a velocity of 1,350 feet per second with 728 foot-pounds of energy. So not really a slouch round for sure. It's definitely, you know, something pretty nasty. So, like I said, for my intentions, this will be to carry around with hunting. Carry on my side. Either I'll try to take a deer close up with it when I got my 450 bolt gun out there, or I will try to use it just if I have to put down a deer or something that's still there and I need to dispatch it quickly. A little bit less of a, not as robust as the 450 in terms for that. So, but yeah, I mean, it really lends itself well, I think, to being built as a pretty heavy duty revolver. Like I said, I really like the barrel profile with the full underlug. The front here on the muzzle, it's got a nice crown. So in terms of carrying this around in the back country or in the woods, I think you're pretty well suited. Being all stainless should help with corrosion prevention. You can get these in a black finish. I do not have a ton of experience with those in terms of knowing how well they hold up in terms of the elements. At least with this stainless, it still can get rust on it. I know that, but you can definitely take some really fine steel wool, some oil, and definitely clean it up. It's not gonna get super pockmarked or something like that. It should hold up, at least in theory, a lot better. Now that being said, I'll go over real quick over the trigger pull. So this is a double action, single action revolver. So obviously your double action is a very heavy but pretty smooth trigger pull. Now you can get it back to this wall, kind of back here. You hear that click. Then it feels pretty light. So if you're trying to stage the trigger, you can do stuff like that. But in terms of single action, very light, very crisp, very quick action. Now I have heard that these do smooth out over time and they do get a little lighter as time goes on. Now real quick, I'll just I got this it's kind of a crappy trigger gauge, trigger scale, but I'll just show the double action. Oop, got my finger on the cylinder. Let me go back here. Let me try one more time. I don't think I got very good. So that was reading 8 pounds. Let me try again here. About 9 pounds there. Now we can go ahead and try with the single action. About 5 pounds. Now earlier I was getting about 10 pounds on the double action. Right there I was getting about 8.5 to 9. So it could just be how I'm holding this. It's not an exact science on the trigger depending on where you get it, but I was pretty consistent at the about 10 to 8.5 pounds on that double action. I'd probably call it about 9.5. Now I was getting about 5 pounds on the single action. So I have tried on my last GP100 doing some spring kits and stuff like that. And actually it did lighten up the trigger. I got that down to about a 2.5 pound trigger pull in the single action. But I'll probably, at least for the foreseeable future, leave this stock just in terms of taking it out hunting and stuff. I don't really want to have any kind of chance for any kind of incidents where I have a negligent discharge or something like that. So that's just a little bit about the trigger. But yeah, I mean, there is a lot of things you can do to these revolvers. They've been around since the 1986, and they've been fairly consistently about the same. So like I said, there's grips, sights, you can get shims for the hammer. That's one thing that people will do, is they'll shim this hammer up because there's a little bit of wobble in there. I mean, it's not a performance gun per se, it's a field gun. But some people get really concerned about that. And in terms of, if you have any cylinder wobble and stuff like that, I'll try to hold this stable. So this is a pretty tight lockup. I mean, there's a little wobble, but that's pretty normal. When you pull the trigger or hammer back, yeah, it's still a little bit of a wobble, but nothing to really write home about. Seems to be pretty tight. I almost want to say, at least if memory serves me, that my 4-inch was a little tighter, but that's probably a normal spec of things. Now in terms of the cylinder gap, I don't know if I can get that to show up. I don't know if I can put something white behind it there. You can kind of see fairly tight. I need to get some actual some shims and stuff to kind of check that out and see if there is a huge gap or whatnot, but it doesn't feel like it or look like it's actually that big of a gap. But that is one potential loss for some speed and energy, is off-gassing here. And as you shoot these, parts wear, you get some erosion. That's where people can put in some shims here into the cylinder, and that way you can kind of push it closer to the forcing cone, which is this guy right here. So, I mean, that's one of them things that over time, it might be something to consider. But that's a lot of rounds, a lot of use. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. I really like the GP100. I will probably try to keep this revolver this time around. I kind of regretted letting the 4-inch go. Wish I still had it, but my guns that I have in my collection, there's only a few that I ever really kind of have any kind of emotional attachment to. But for the most part, I kind of trade them off, depends. Sometimes I do pretty good on a trade-in, sometimes I don't. But I'm always looking for different things, trying different things out. So least flavor of the day is going to be the 6-inch GP100. So hopefully I didn't get the video going too long, but definitely if you guys have any questions, let me know, and I'll be sure to try to answer it for you the best I can. But yeah, so definitely a cool looking revolver. I've shot this one particularly. I've probably got about 150 round-ish through it so far. Not any issues or anything. Mainly I've just shot some, basic, like this PPU defense line, 357 mag, 158 grains. And I have shot just a few of these Grizzly 180s. In terms of recoil, it's very manageable. It handles it very well. I actually think the 6-inch kind of balances out pretty good with the heavier loads. So to each their own. In terms of, carrying this, this would be a little big for a concealed carry situation unless you wanted to go with like a shoulder holster setup or something like that. The 4-inch would probably be a better option on that. So, but like I said, hunting purposes for this one. So this one should suit my needs very well. But yeah, again, sorry, rambling on, but let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, let me know. So, all right, thanks for watching.